me clearly. America is not a racist country.
First of all, I would like to thank several of my subscribers for sending this story. I did get this story several days ago, and I was definitely going to do this story. And it just goes to show you no matter how much people claim things change, these folks really are not that far removed from their forefathers because they commit a lot of the same acts and bear the same racism that they did years ago. It's still prevalent even today. And you can see it in how American society is ran. And I think the biggest problem is how we have never fully accepted it. And I think that disturbs them. They think anything they throw in our face, we should be embracing of it, including the racism. And many of us are never going to embrace it, period. So let's get into this story. Get out. I stood naked with my shotgun. Black ranchers say white residents terrorized their Colorado farm to push them off their land. No, they're trying to steal the land. And this is how it was done in the past. And you're seeing in real time today how it's always been done. This is how they do it. This is how they come in. They terrorize you, terrorize your family, sabotage your livestock by poisoning them, and doing all kinds of things to the point where you can't take it no more and you leave. And then that land, they will scoop all that land up as theirs. Oldest trick in the book. This is really not new at all. But I do hate that these black ranchers in Colorado are going through this. But it just goes to show you how America has absolutely never, ever changed. They think because we're in a different era that it's different. It's never been different. You try to make it look different, but it's never, ever been different. Never. And what's happening to them is another reason for reparations. This is another reason for it. Locals call them the blacks or those N words who live down the road. Townspeople know when they are by Courtney and Nicole Lowry's 1,000-acre ranch in El Paso County, Colorado, by the flags flown for 2 miles. The U.S. Marine Corps, Jesus is King, and Black Lives Matter. Nicole, who is a military veteran, and y'all, this just goes to show you they talk all that veteran talk. Remember when Colin Kaepernick was going on with the kneeling, and they kept coming around us talking about we hate veterans. We never had an issue with veterans because many of us, including myself, had veterans in our families. But see, I guess if you can't think of anything better to say and that's all you can come up with, you're full of it. But see, when you come and terrorize us, like this family, it proves that you don't care about veterans. At least the black ones you don't. And we've seen that a multitude of times too. Even some of the Karen videos where Karen walked up to black veterans being completely disrespectful. It's you that don't care about them, especially the ones that don't look like you. So, anyway, Nicole, who is a Black veteran, mentioned how local passerbys who are part of the continuous parade of intimidation and attack disregarded her Marine flag because they don't care about it. They never cared about Black veterans in this country, and the history shows it. Black veterans used to get lynched in their uniforms. Even during World War II, they would sit down and eat with the Germans and run the Black veterans off. You know, so that's why it don't pay to bear arms for a country that hates you. It is never going to be in your best interest to do that. Never. And religious banners to focus on the display of BLM signs on the property. Well, it's their property. They can have anything they want on it. So, ladies and gentlemen, of course, if you display a Black Lives Matter flag, that's like kryptonite to these folks. Now, I don't fully agree with the movement, but I understand where it comes from because we never met. We still don't matter up in here. We don't at all. And they like it that way. They want us to be the forced underclass because that's how it's been. What's going on has never been a natural phenomena. It is due to sabotaging, rigging, and using policies and laws to keep us down at the bottom. It's not a natural thing at all. So they have documented a lot of what has happened, and that's exactly what you need to do. And one said, I was amazed at how much proper was tagged as Black Lives Matter. Didn't expect the kind of in your face crap way out here. Well, it really doesn't matter what part of the country you're in. As far as racial, remember, racism is actually a universal thing. It's all over the planet. It doesn't matter if you're in some of the most remote areas you could possibly be in, it's going to be there too. Especially if we're there, it's going to be there. No doubt about it. Facebook posts saw it shows people plotting to jam up roads so that no one gets in and out of where these ranchers live. A comment has been taken down that suggested that a fire should be set as they were trapped in. Again, this is stuff they have done in the past, during the times when Black towns were burnt down. It was not unusual for them to lock Black people into a building and then burn it down. I mean, it just goes to show you they have zero original thought. Everything they say to us, you can track it back hundreds of years ago. No new thought, no originality, no nothing. So others talk about using pitchforks. Again, nothing new. Nothing new. This is the same page where the Mallorys were doxxed. Their address was posted along with Courtney's photos. Immediately, they saw an increase of unwanted visitors. So they joined a state program that withheld their identities. Unfortunately, that is not working. Oh no, they don't spread the word about where you are. So since they started the petition to remove Sheriff Emery Ray Gerhart, why he done joined in with them again. Nothing new. You can see in the past where the police and the Klan and the white residents all came together. I mean, this is nothing new. Everything you can track this back in the past that you see happening today. They're not that far removed from their forefathers. So, ladies and gentlemen, more whites have been riding slowly past the edge of their ranch. They have started a smear campaign calling them criminals. Now, isn't that what happened after chattel slavery? Soon as our forefathers left the plantation, they got labeled as criminals, and jails went up immediately all across America for us, for our people. So, in particular, Nicole, the implication is that the Mallorys, as Black people, do not know their place. What do they call us? Uppity, uppity, no new thought. So they are marked as troublemakers again. No new thought. When have we not been labeled as troublemakers? When? When? Look, we get threatened just doing these videos online. Oh, you better watch it. You better watch it. You better watch what you say. Yeah, whatever. Ironically, it was Courtney and Nicole who provide food to the same poor residents in a rural community during the global pandemic, in particular, rural communities that were hit the hardest and saw a grave spike in food insecurity. The people were dying disproportionately during the pandemic who didn't have healthy food, Courtney said. Before the pandemic, 1 in 10 people in Colorado were unsure on a daily basis if and what they would eat. Yes, that was seen all throughout the country. In fact, if some of y'all remember, I did videos on the miles and miles of cars that would be waiting at food banks. I did stories on that. So that's what they're saying is very true. But I understand what these Black ranchers are saying, but they got to understand they're not going to see that as kindness. It is absolutely a very giving and kind nature that we're seeing how they were concerned about people eating, despite the fact that they fed people in the community during a time that was difficult, and that was the lockdown. You see how they disregard that and still come at these people? It doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you go above and beyond. When they got this kind of hatred in them, nothing you do is going to matter. Nothing. So, ladies and gentlemen, more stores sold out of meat and produce. So, and of course, these Black ranchers wanted to give to the community. They wanted to make sure people were fed with good, healthy food, Courtney said. So the Mallorys struck a relationship with 5 stores in the Denver area to supply them with food from their farms. Yet and still, their generosity grew because they saw many people in El Paso County region going hungry. And you see how they're still treating these ranchers that went above and beyond in their community. This is how it is, y'all. This is how it is. Mm-mm-mm. People did not have food to eat, so we donated our farm, said Nicole, who explained what they began to regularly give pounds of meat from their high value stock of beef cattle and chicken. As time went on, the response by some residents was not what the Mallorys expected. Some of these same people we fed are the same ones behind the racist attacks. Man, you should put up a sign, please don't feed the racists. Wow. This is not shocking. This is actually a historic thing too. Not shocking. I've never experienced racism like this, she admitted solemnly. I'm not surprised, hon. I mean, if you read history, you would know that everything that you're explaining in this story is historic. You can literally find it in the history. Okay, y'all. Nicole is more vocal than her spouse. So during the 2020 racial civil unrest, she participated in a number of demonstrations and worked to move progressive state legislation like the Crown Act, a law that makes it illegal to discriminate in public education, employment practices, housing, public accommodations, and advertising based on one's hair, including hair texture, hair type, and a protective hairstyle. All right. So we all know about the Crown Act. Absolutely. Because of her outspokenness, she is considered another type of problem. I guess an intelligent Black woman in rural America is an anomaly. Well, it's not an anomaly, but we're not supposed to stand up and protect ourselves just in general. At least, this is what they were taught. And no matter what you were taught, it doesn't mean those things are going to happen. Sometimes the person that taught you that is just an idiot. So the trespassing is so bad that one day while taking a shower, Nicole saw a man atop of the fence and walked into the Mallory's home. She was alone at the time. Boldly, he proceeded to open the door without knocking and hollered, then entered. Wet and naked, Nicole pulled out her shotgun and pointed at him. There I stood with only my shotgun in hand, recalled Nicole. Still, my body doesn't matter to them. Free Acres Ranch is supposed to be a template for those aspiring to own the land and live off of it. For Nicole, their endeavors are important to show Black women that they can own land and prosper, even for her nieces who are already designing out gardens on the ranch. The future is uncertain. I am grappling with my military service, and what I've experienced here is a difficult process, lamented Nicole. Well, I think it is hard for some of our people to realize that maybe this is not the country you should be defending. You know, if you can't be treated with humanity, then why are you bearing arms for people that are never going to treat you right? It is a question that many of our forefathers have been grappling with. I mean, some of us, like myself, had someone in our family fight in every war for this country. And look where we are today. They act like where we are today is some big deal when it really isn't. It isn't at all, you know? But, and plus, I don't want people that don't look like me to tell me what my situation is and who I am. I don't want that from them. You should never accept that. We don't sit around and tell them, oh, well, you should be doing this and you should be. What the hell with that? No, I don't need that from them. So, Nicole's sentiment are sincere and common. Throughout history, here in the US, it's waves of war, black servicemen and women deal with an unsavory reality that their military sacrifice is met with white racism when they return home after World War One. Soldiers returning home were antagonized and many of them were lynched in their uniforms. Yes, yes. Their pride were interpreted as an uppity Negro, isn't that? We're still referred to as uppity Negroes even to this day, much like the response Nicole is receiving. A lot of this is jealousy that you even have that land and have that ranch, and you're able to live the way that you are living out there. A lot of it is jealousy, you know, and just look at what happened during the pandemic. This black rancher and their families were doing fine. They fed the community. There were others around them that are being racist to them today. They fed them. They had to be fed. They had to be provided with food. But nothing in the story that said these black ranchers needed to be helped with food. It's jealousy. It's straight up jealousy. Mm-mm-mm. So Nicole is originally from Indiana. She met Courtney in Houston. She's the fighter and he's the grower. When they began to experience an uptick in domestic racism and terror, she wanted to kick up her activism spirit, but agreed to deal with the issues without alerting many people in hopes that things would go away and quiet down. No, racism never goes away. It never goes away. That advice that people would give you, oh, just ignore it, that never works. That never works, y'all. If you're trying to practice, oh, just ignore it, then you're definitely going down the wrong path. That never works. It never worked and it never will work. It never will work. So she said they must be full throttle. While Nicole is a proud veteran, I mean, she talks an awful lot about her being a veteran, and she doesn't realize they don't care about that. But I just noticed in the article she raised that the fact that she is a veteran over and over, and she doesn't realize that doesn't matter to them. It doesn't matter. Often she contemplates race and racism on the hardest days defending her property. It's sickening to me that I sat in a foxhole and fought for people like this. Right. And that's why so many don't want any part of the military in this country. But you know what the funny part is? If a world war were to break out right now, they would immediately come and be talking to black people. Oh, and then all of a sudden, this will become our country, because they want you out there fighting. Okay, those are the oldest tricks in the book. But as long as they don't feel they need you, yeah, they're going to snub you. They don't care that you're a black veteran. They could care less. Mm-mm-mm. So, I'm just going to go down a bit because it talks about some of the other things, but what I want to do is kind of stay along lines of the things that has happened, around these people. So, my thing is about the Mallorys, you have a decision to make. You can either hang in there and tough this out, or what you can do is use their laws. There are laws against this kind of stuff, and fight. One thing I can honestly say, on a civil level, we do quite well in civil court. It's the criminal court that they got all rigged up, and it still runs as if we're still in Reconstruction and Jim Crow. That's how the criminal justice system runs in this country. So, but in civil court, we actually do quite well. And, so far, I'm just reading so much about the things that they've done in the community and continue to do, people they have befriended in the community. And of course, you're going to always have some that are going to be indifferent when you live in that kind of area. But this is what happens. And there's also part of the story where their animals were poisoned, okay, by these racists that are in the community around them. So let me see if I can get to that. Okay, these are some of their animals that were killed. And it looks like a dog and some goats, just from what I'm seeing in the picture. So Courtney briefly paused and simply told that he had guard dogs for the cattle and other animals. And, and she said they would shoot at their dogs. A Pyrenees, one of their dogs, that they favored. When he responded that he was the new owner, the woman replied she was supposed to buy the land, and they shot at the dogs in the area. Courtney briefly paused and simply told that he had guard dogs for the cattle and other animals. So they started a cycle of poisoning animals again. This is nothing new. There are Black farmers in this country that can tell you similar stories about their livestock getting poisoned. This is nothing new. Mm-mm. So, I mean, it's a disgusting act. It really is. You would think, it's your property, that is your livestock, and people would just leave well enough alone. But they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And usually in these situations, even if you report it to the police, they are, the police, they're really participants, or they back up these racists, these white supremacists that are doing this stuff to you. So you're not going to really get much help from law enforcement. So because at one point in this story, she said the local police enabled what's happening. The local police have always been in cahoots with the white supremacists. She emphasized, Nicole, who said they were never welcomed by community members. While Nicole thinks you need police to do, to a certain degree, not really. If they're going to be more destructive than helpful, then they're really not needed. They're not. You know what this brings me back to, NYPD, when they refused to do their job in certain areas because they were mad about all the protesting that was going on up in New York. As soon as they stopped patrolling where the Black and Hispanics lived, the crime plummeted. And that right there proves they were the cause of all the crime going on in the area. As soon as they refused to patrol because they were being picketed, the crime immediately dropped. So she never thought that her main nemesis would be the local law enforcement. Again, I'm not surprised about that. Although Mallorys are far from being scared, they are surely outnumbered. While Colorado has a 12.4% Black population, the Mallorys are one of the few Blacks living in the region of El Paso County. While the county is the most populous in the state, the majority of Colorado's Black residents are concentrated in Denver, Colorado Springs, Aurora, and Pueblo. Denver is over an hour from Mallory's location and is completely a different world from the rural community they live in. Yeah, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Wow. So, after the Civil War, the Lincoln administration put in a list of executive orders, programs, and legislation to recognize the United States and rebuild the South because the war was mostly fought in southern states. Much of the land was in shambles. With the recent freedom of millions of enslaved people, there was also much reconstructing to do. Right. And it was Black men that they trumped up charges to put in the convict leasing program. Those were the ones that rebuilt the South. They still didn't rebuild the South back then. Now they'll lie in your face and tell you they did, but they didn't. It was the Black men that were arrested. They trumped up charges like they do today and put them in jail to make them slaves again. They were the very ones that built up the South to where it is today. That's how it got built up. So when they try to say they did it, you tell them the convict lease program did it. That's why y'all put those things in place to ensure that our people would still be in a slave like position, just like all of these prisons primarily got our people in there, exonerations going on every day, and they want us to act oblivious to these things, and we're never going to be oblivious to it. Not now, not ever. A number of service and institutions were put in place, from schools to land ownership deals. Blacks were given the right to vote and other incentives as new citizens. It also included protection from Union Army members in the area that were hostile. Yeah, well, if you want to know what Union soldiers were like towards us, go read about the Devil's Punch Bowl, because that was done by Union soldiers. Okay. For the first time, the US had an African American congressman, and Black men could vote because Blacks were the architects. Yeah, well, we were. I mean, come on, all of this stuff is still in place. You got a Congressional Black Caucus and all of that. You don't have to dig through history to find this stuff. It's still going on today. And we don't have no more power with a Congressional Black Caucus than if we didn't have one at all. And plain and simple, they have really been of no help or no use to us, and they never will be at this point. So, how does someone who desires to grow food end up fighting for land they bought and potentially their freedoms and lives? Daily, the Mallorys are grappling with a question that they were not prepared to answer in the days of assault. All we wanted to do was to feed our community, provide fresh food. Courtney mentioned that they donated hundreds of pounds of meat over the last 2 years in the midst of their dealings with racial terror. Agriculture is how America eats. Yeah. And remember, our forefathers did all of the agriculture back during chattel slavery. And these folks think that we don't know what that is now. We most certainly do. We most certainly do. We, just because you see us in cities and suburbs, and it don't mean we don't know how to grow food. My grandparents both lived in rural America and they both grew food and had livestock. Okay, had livestock, grew their own food. Had my one grandmother on my mom's side of the family had 8 pecan trees on her property. 8 pecan trees. She would sell the pecans to a manufacturing plant that was in town that would shell them and package them and sell them in local supermarkets. My grandmother would take that money and paid her property taxes with it every single year. She was quite a businesswoman. Not only did she own her house, both houses on both sides of her house, she owned those houses too and rented them out. That's how she made it. So please don't come to black folks talking about we don't know agriculture. We know it better than you think. So anyway, agriculture is how America eats. Where would we be without food? Courtney asked. Oh, yeah, that's very true. Nowadays, people think food is created in a lab somewhere, and they seem to have forgotten about farmers, especially black farmers, and the role we play in all of this. Well, yeah, they do have a lot of processed foods and stuff, but you still can't do even some of the processed food without farming, you know? Yeah, you'll have byproducts, but it still have some degree of natural food in there too. So many questioned the Mallorys on their reasons for staying under such, wow, I mean, the most hideous conditions that you could possibly be in. That's what they're in. I mean, it is just awful. You would think you could live in peace anywhere you want in the land. And when it's us, it's a whole different story. It is our land. We are not being ran off, asserted Courtney. I am doing this for black farmers after me who won't have to deal with this in the future. I wish that was true, Courtney. I can't say that with a certainty. I certainly wish that was true. In between tending the cattle, the Mallorys keep watch. They have added body cameras to their daily farm clothes to document their movements around the ranch. Oh, wow. Mm, mm, mm. So it does have at the end of the article to help the Mallory family for meat sales that will assist them in purchasing a private fence, more surveillance cameras, replace stolen tools and animals. Wow, they're poisoning your animals and also stealing some of them too. Wow. So they have a GoFundMe page, ladies and gentlemen. And what I will do is I will leave the information in the description box for their GoFundMe. Wow. I mean, how awful this is to happen to them. But in the same token, this is America, and this is really who America is. This is the real America. And if there's anything from sea to shining sea, it's their racism. Y'all, please tell me what you think about this video. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. peace, family.